You and Senator McCain called for suspending the 18.4-cent federal gas tax. Senator Obama calls it a gimmick. He says it's pandering. He says it won't really bring any help to consumers. And he also said this.
Same thing that John McCain's offering on the cheap. That means we're not presenting a truthful response to the challenges that we face in America.
My proposal is very different from Senator McCain. Senator McCain has said, take off the gas tax, don't pay for it, throw us further into deficit and debt. That is not what I've proposed. What I proposed is that the oil companies pay the gas tax instead of consumers and drivers this summer.
Economists say that's not going to happen. They say this is going to go straight into the profits of the oil companies. They're not going to actually lower their prices. And the two top leaders in the House are against it. Nearly every editorial board and economist in the country has come out against it. Even a supporter of yours, Paul Krugman of the New York Times, calls it pointless and disappointing.
The mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg, Gene Sperling, said about Hillary Clinton and John McCain's plan, for that matter, for the gas tax holiday. It's the dumbest thing I've heard in an awful long time from an economic point of view. As you know, Gene, a lot of economists out there think it's not going to achieve its desired results, and it's largely political pandering.
Can you name one economist, a credible economist, who supports this suspension? Can you name an economist who thinks this makes sense?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to put my lot in with economists.
At the heart of my approach is a simple belief. Middle-class families are paying too much, and oil companies aren't paying their fair share to help us solve the problems at the pump.
So what this is a strategy to get through the next election. And Senator Clinton's own staff told the Washington Post, we don't think this is really going to go anywhere. We don't think it's going to work, but we think it's a good issue to use in a campaign.
You know, I'm down here in Miami right now, and on my way over here, gas was $3.85 a gallon for regular unleaded. And I think that the American people who are paying that at the pump are outraged about that. I think they're also outraged because the oil companies are making so much money off of this, hand over fist. You just mentioned a moment ago, $7 billion in one quarter for one company alone. And I think the problem with John McCain's strategy, and I think also the problem with Hillary Clinton's strategy and approach, is that it actually penalizes the construction workers, it penalizes the drivers who want better roads, and also benefits the oil companies. Why not go after the oil companies with a windfall profits tax?
Well, but I think what was really key about the whole discussion of a gas tax holiday is this, that instead of just talking about the oil companies, instead of just talking about the price of gas, people will become that much more aware across this country that the federal government benefits tremendously from taxes on gasoline, and that's meant to go to repair our roads and our bridges, and everybody knows that our bridge and road repair they're in disrepair. So
the problem with a gas tax is that if you take 18 cents off of the gallon of gas, it increases driving, and the oil companies will simply raise their prices to match the increase in demand. Most economists looking at this have seen that it's a complete wash and therefore a political gimmick as well as economic nonsense.
It's a gimmick. It's the kind of thing that's done before every election when gas prices go up, so the politicians in Washington can pretend they're doing something instead of actually taking seriously the need for an energy policy in this country.
Why are you against giving taxpayers in Indiana, North Carolina, a relief from the federal gasoline tax this summer?
You're right, Tim. This defines, I think, the difference between myself and Senator Clinton. This gas tax, which was first proposed by John McCain and then quickly adopted by Senator Clinton, is a classic Washington gimmick. It is a political response to a serious problem that we have neglected for decades. Here's the upshot. You're looking at suspending a gas tax for 3 months. The average driver would save 30 cents per day for a grand total of $28. That's assuming that the oil companies don't step in and raise prices by the same amount that the tax has been reduced. And by the way, I have some experience on this because in Illinois, we tried this when I was in the state legislature, and that's exactly what happened. The oil companies, the retailers, were the ones who ended up benefiting.
You voted for it. So
I did, exactly. And
when gas is only $2 a gallon?
And that's my point. I voted for it, and then 6 months later, we took a look, and consumers had not benefited at all. But we had lost revenue.
So you learned from a wrong vote?
I learned from a mistake. And in addition, what happens is that this would come out of the Federal Highway Fund that we use to rebuild our roads and our bridges. And if we don't have that fund, then we're looking at thousands of jobs being lost in Indiana and in North Carolina. Now, Senator Clinton says that she's going to use the windfall profits tax to fill it. First of all, she's already said that she's going to use the windfall profits tax for something else, as I have, and that is to invest in clean energy and other important measures. So that money she's already spending twice. More importantly, nobody thinks that George Bush is actually going to spend or is actually going to sign a law for windfall profits taxes, so that's not going to happen this summer. And that's what Washington does. We don't deal with the serious issues that are in front of us. We try to figure out what's going to poll well and what can we do to get through the next election. And what I've said is, look, people do need serious relief. They are getting hammered. I meet people who can't go on job searches because they can't fill up their gas tank. And so what I've said is, let's accelerate the second half of a tax stimulus proposal that I had put forward that would put immediately hundreds of dollars into people's pockets to get through the summer. Let's pass a permanent middle-class tax cut, $1,000 per family to offset the payroll tax, to deal not just with rising costs of gas, but also rising costs of food, rising costs of prescription drugs. And most importantly, let's invest in alternative fuels, raising fuel efficiency standards on cars, and let's get serious about reducing consumption of oil, which is the only way that over the long term we're going to reduce gas prices. And you know, I have to say that if Senator Clinton or John McCain had stood up in previous years for increases in fuel efficiency standards, in getting serious about an energy policy that is freeing ourselves from dependence on foreign oil, then we would not be in the same situation in the first place. And I don't want 20 years from now to have a bunch of politicians proposing a suspension of the gas tax holiday when gas is $8 or $10 a gallon because we failed to act now. Now's the time for us to act, and I think the people of Indiana and North Carolina understand that.
It's a pander?
Yes.